This Boss Rush Spotlight is brought to you by, well, you. If you want to learn how to support the Boss Rush family of podcasts, head to bossrush.net or our Patreon at patreon.com/bossrushmedia. Thanks for helping us build something better. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Boss Rush Podcast, a great place to play games and be better. I'm one of your hosts, Corey Derrigan. Alongside me for this Spotlight episode is PK Power, Pat Klein.
Hey, everybody. What's happening? Everyone breathing okay?
Sure. Yeah.
Sure.
We'll go with yes.
Awesome.
Hi, Pat.
Hey, I'm right now in like a highly dangerous air quality area. Probably the highest in anywhere in the world right now.
Awesome.
Yeah, go Canada fires.
Oh, right, because you're way up north and you're by okay, yeah. I was like,
yep.
I thought you were kind of kidding for a second.
300.
Oh no,
that's not good.
Oh man, so I got sucked into the Final Fantasy 16 camp.
Yeah,
but you know, we'll talk about that on an episode of the normal podcast. We're here for a developer spotlight. The creator of this game looks incredible. Rah Rah Boom. If you haven't looked at the trailer for this yet, guys, I'm telling you, you need to watch the trailer for this game. I am so hyped as a fan of, the 16-bit, obviously, like Ninja Turtles side-scrolling games of the 90s, River City Girls, and even the most recent Streets of Rage. This is like that on another level. I want everybody to welcome Chris Bergman.
Hey guys!
Hello. Welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man. Happy to be here.
Yeah, happy that you are kind of in my neck of the woods. Actually,
let's go, Ohio!
Yeah, I know, man. Only a 3.5 hour drive down 77. So what's up? What's up? This is awesome. I'm glad you're here. This is exciting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, man, super happy to be here. So a little bit of an introduction. So I'm Chris Bergman, CEO of Gylee Games. We're a studio based in Cincinnati, Ohio, and we're making a 4-player co-op beat 'em up about ninja cheerleaders from outer space called Rah Rah Boom.
This is awesome. Okay, so beat 'em up is putting it lightly. We're gonna get to that. But I want to know. So I was creeping on you on LinkedIn a little bit because
love it.
I like to try to do some research for our guests. I don't like to come in here.
Did you find my OnlyFans?
Really? Nope, didn't go there.
All right,
Laurent's not on this episode.
I found it. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Laurent's not on this episode, so But so you've done a lot of stuff outside of games, within games adjacent. So why don't you give an elevator pitch of who you are and kind of what
my LinkedIn profile? Yeah.
I can read it word for word if you want. I can.
No, please don't.
Just like a job interview, you have 30 seconds to impress us with your resume.
Yeah.
Yeah. Geez, that's intense. Okay,
1 minute.
Yeah. I not to bury the lead, but I'm a high school dropout. Got kicked out of high school, never finished. Serial entrepreneur my entire life. Kind of the big thing that happened before Gylee Games was a company called Chore Monster, which was an app for parents and kids to enjoy doing chores. Kids would gain points from it for real life rewards, like an hour of Xbox, television show, canoe trip, sharp knives, whatever parents want to give their kids. And then on top of that, for every chore that they completed, they would get a ticket to the Monster Carnival where they could earn over 100 different interactive monsters that we created. And then once Disney invested in that company, a lot of Disney characters and other characters and things like that. So grew that company out of Cincinnati as well. And then exited, grew that to about 4 million users and exited that company in 2018. And so come from the tech startup space, but yeah, finally got to the place where I could do the only thing that I've ever wanted to do since I was 10, which is make video games. And that's where my focus is today.
That's awesome. Yeah. I mean, I think I think it's really cool that you have pursued a lot of interesting things, especially like something I've always wanted to do is make a game, but I don't think I don't know if I have the capacity to learn all that, man. So we talked to some humble onion who released Smushy Come Home the other day, and he taught himself Unity for like 6 months. He just sat and worked on Unity.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm always impressed when people are like, yeah, I just taught myself how to do this. I'm like, oh my gosh, you are how, you know? So
Yeah, more patience than I ever will.
yeah, I know, right? So I'm assuming you are somehow self-taught in a variety of spaces then as well then.
Yeah, I mean, definitely self-taught in a bunch of different places. I mean, for me, it's much more the creative side and the design side, more
Mm-hmm.
than the actual engineering side. So I think the other thing that's really important to have as a skill set as a CEO of a studio is the ability to raise money and find capital and build a team of excellent, insanely talented people. And I take a lot of joy in that, man. I really love creating a team that can make an excellent product, and so it's a lot of those pieces for sure. And my partner Denver Colson, he's an engineer. He went to NYU Game Center. He got his master's there. Worked studied under Frank Lance and Bennett Foddy, and just like sort of like literally the most artsy game designers on the planet. Brilliant, brilliant guys. And so he's the one that's definitely doing all of our code. I can't take that credit for me.
I mean, you could, nothing stopping you here.
Otto would be upset.
Yeah, that's fair. So tell me how you came up with so your studio. What is there a specific meaning behind the name of your studio? Like, I mean,
Yeah, there is. And it's really kind of lazy, I would say.
oh,
My kids' names are Guy and Lee.
oh,
And so when, I had, previously had gone through a bunch of brand stuff with my last company and spent, literally hundreds of thousands of dollars on branding exercises and a bunch of other stuff. And so when I started this company, I was like, dude, I just need a name. I just need a name for the LLC. I'm not going to spend a ton of time on this. All the work's going to be spent on the projects, like the games, right?
mm-hmm.
Like,
Mm-hmm.
so the studio name means it doesn't matter. And so, yeah, Gylee Games, Guy and Lee. That's it. It really, really kind of simple. And I mean, it's become this like weird esoteric. I'm seeing the consequences of that choice in that one, my kids will wear Gylee shirts to school and be like, I'm a badass. And I'm like, whoa, hang on. First of all, you're nerds.
Mm-hmm.
And we're all nerds here, so let's calm down. And then two, but I mean, the upside of that is, so we have a Gylee Games webcomic where we post, webcomics sporadically about us, just making games. And the fifth grade class, I guess now sixth grade class of Mercy Montessori in Cincinnati, Ohio, is absolutely obsessed with the Gylee Games webcomic. So they're
It's
all just they're like Taylor Swift fans, man. They're so angry that there hasn't been a new comic in a couple of weeks.
oh man, you got your own version of the Swifties, huh?
yeah, but they're fifth graders.
Well, that's where they start, I guess.
Yep. But anyway, yeah. So, yeah, all that to say, it's just my kids' names.
Cool. So that webcomic, like, is that like, does something happen kind of in the office and that inspires like the creation of like the next comic?
Yeah, absolutely, man. I mean, we have a couple of really wonderful people that work on the team that are webcomic artists in their own right.
Mm-hmm.
Chrissy Hops being one of them. And I grew up a huge fan of like PvP Online and Penny Arcade and all of these early comics in the very, very early aughts that have now sort of flourished, PAX and etc. And so having the opportunity to kind of tell our own stories in webcomic form was really important, especially before we could talk about Rah Rah, right? Like we've been working on this game for a couple of years, couldn't say anything, couldn't announce anything, but wanted to start talking about who we were as a team. And web comics in particular were like a great form for us to make jokes, talk about our team, and just kind of tell the stories that we want to tell about ourselves prior to announcing the game.
That's so smart. I'm actually like, it's not something you really think about when you go to other studios' websites or anything or whatever. But like, I'm now shocked that more people don't do that. That's amazing. Uh, it's kind of funny because like when about a decade ago when I was managing a restaurant, I had this really funny idea of a comic, like a short form comic called We Work Together. And it was just all the dumb things that happen in the restaurant. But this is like, that on like the 20. This is I read a couple of the uh comics beforehand, and the art is really good. The jokes land. It's pretty funny, actually.
I mean, that's a testament to our team, man. I mean, Chrissy in particular is an incredible webcomic artist and writer as well. I mean, we sort of do collaborative writing on them in a lot of cases, but like, and now it's interesting now that Rah Rah's announced, we've actually migrated over to like, well, what if the girls have their own Instagram? What do those things look like? And so she's kind of focused on telling that narrative, which is still sort of a webcomic form of storytelling, but it's literally like a mocked up Instagram of these girls prior to going on to this adventure that's in the game.
No, that's pretty neat. I mean, just like building up that backlore for your various characters.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
Yeah.
that's definitely something I would totally check out. If
Yeah.
you guys like dropped a link, either in your game or like on your website.
Yeah, I mean it's all on our socials right now, so let's get into the plugs, guys.
Do
Everyone
it.
follow us on at Gylee Games, Gylee Games on Insta and Twitter.
That's so cool. I love little as a big Destiny fan, I love when there's character lore attached to the characters that you're supposed to love. And so this is man, that's so fun. I like how you're making it part of the real world too, and not just some like, you know, and Destiny 1 was really famous for these things called grimoire cards, and as you progress through the game, you had to unlock them to read them. And it's like, I don't want to do that. I just want to like look at it and read it. And then they started putting them into books, which I was like, haha, that's stupid. And then I bought all 5 of them. So but I love that you can just go to Instagram and look at this, or your website and read the webcomic, or Twitter and see what's going on. I love that. I love it. I love the world. I love the like out of the box thinking of world building, I guess.
Yeah, I mean it's so difficult to connect. What we're trying to do over a pretty significant. We're a new IP, right? Like the biggest difference between every beat 'em up that's come out in the past 3-4 years that are all amazing and us is we are a brand new IP. No one has ever seen these characters. They've never heard of these characters. And these are characters that we internally absolutely genuinely are in love with. They have interesting stories. They have, amazing backgrounds. They are complicated. They go through real life challenges. And we want to start telling that story today as opposed to waiting for the game to come out.
It gets people excited. I mean, if they know, like, if they like the characters and they know enough about them before the game comes out, that's smart. That's so smart. Instead of waiting, like, I feel like everything has to be this connected universe now. And like, everybody's like, oh, we're working on the first game, but it's going to be 3 games and a 12-issue comic line and anime series on Netflix. It's like, no, like I understand, like you want your game to succeed and you have all these plans, but like, I think what you're doing is way smarter than that, right? And like, honestly, I think this would probably make a really cool Netflix cartoon at some point or something, right? Like, I just by watching the trailers and the art style and everything. I think it would really fit that way. But like, I think what you're doing is super smart in that way, and like not only building their universe, but putting your own personality behind, especially like the early parts of the comic on your website and stuff. Super. It's I'm jealous.
Well,
actually,
we're such a small team. We're an incredibly small team, right? And so we don't have a ton of resources. And so then it becomes like, okay, what are the tools that are at our disposal to tell these stories, right? And like it may be just like a one Instagram post, but it will tell, the story of an afternoon of these girls together, right? Like, so we're trying to leverage all the tools that are at our disposal within sort of the resources that we have available. That's it. It's there's I think boundaries create creativity in a lot of ways, right? And this is one of those ways where that's happening.
Now, what was the inspiration for this idea behind Rah Rah Boom? Like, when someone says I'm going to create a game, the first thing that does not come to my mind is teenage ninja cheerleading aliens.
Why not? That's the first thing that comes to my mind.
It's like the second or third thing, but it's not the first thing.
Yeah. So I mean, it's been a long process. So I love the phonetics of Rah Rah Boom. So I bought that URL in 2008.
Oh wow!
I've held on to that domain. I'm like one of those weird domain collectors. I have a couple hundred at this point, right?
Oh, I was gonna say I do too, but I have like 8.
Still counts, yeah. But with a bunch of different projects or phonetics, and so Rah Rah Boom just as a phonetic sort of action statement was really interesting to me. And then I also grew up in the arcades in the 90s. I got kicked out of my head, or like I would skip school to go play Marvel vs. Capcom 2 at the arcade. I would then absolutely get my ass kicked at Marvel vs. Capcom 2 in the arcade. And so, you have to wait your turn to play another round. And so during that time, I would go play Simpsons or X-Men or Ninja Turtles or these co-op arcade beat 'em ups.
The classics.
And that's where I would really make friends. I'm not a particularly competitive person. And so, it was difficult. I can't roast anybody. I'm so bad at roast because like fighting games, it's all about like shit talking, right? And I was bad at that. I was awful at that. But I'd go play X-Men or Ninja Turtles or whatever, and like just hop into somebody else's game, and then we'd start. It was our form of sort of like the golf game now, right? Where the game's much more about sitting in the golf cart than it is actually playing golf. And so co-op games were that for me. Co-op beat 'em ups in particular were that for me, where I would be able to have a conversation with these people in the arcades in the 90s and then become friends with them. Like that is where friendship sort of started for me. Because in the 90s, right? Like if you had a Game Pro, you were a weirdo in high school. I mean, and so that's where I found sort of my tribe was in beat 'em ups. And so, it was always really, really important to me to have an opinion and a take on a beat 'em up in the beat 'em up genre at some point, and make that game. And then Rah Rah Boom sat in my head for 10, 11, 12 years. And I'm like, well, what is a Rah Rah Boom? It's like, well, it's cheerleaders that blow shit up. I mean, it's pretty obvious. And so that those two things sort of converged into the game that we're creating right now.
That's so cool. I remember, man, countless hours trying to play Ninja Turtles, like the arcade game, and
yeah,
like I remember the first time I saw the 6-player X-Men cabinet, I was like, oh my gosh, you can play 6 players on this? Because some of the smaller arcades only have the 4-player cabinet or whatever, and it's like, oh my gosh.
The 2 screens that and then there was definitely like a line in the middle of the screen, but who cared?
Yeah, I mean, at the time we didn't know better. Who cares? 6 players? Oh, it was amazing. And then you had to come home to your Genesis and play Hyperstone Heist with 2 people. I'm like, oh, gross.
Nowadays, when you hover around a 6-player cabinet, Some of us are kind of big, and it gets a little tight down there.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
or like isn't Killer Queen 10? Right? Like, do you guys
10
know
or
the
12,
Killer?
I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That cabinet gets real tight.
Yeah. Man.
Yeah.
Remember when they tried to put that on Switch and thought that was a good idea? Oh man.
I never played it. I've only played it in its arcade form. So its purest form.
Yeah, I never played it on Switch, but
We at an Extra Life event, we literally tried to sync it up to get all 10 players. That was like super impossible to do. It had to take like 2 switches, multiple controllers all synced up, and it's like getting them to sync up to the right switch, and it was a hassle. I don't recommend it.
yeah.
Stick with 4.
Shout out Arcade Legacy in Cincinnati, who does have a Killer Queen cab, and it was great.
Yeah, our Chuck E. Cheese does not have a Killer Queen. So they do have a Halo sit-down Halo.
Oh yeah, I've played that. That's really fun, actually. Yeah.
Yeah, my nephews were really into it. It was pretty cool. They also have that Flappy Bird machine. Man,
slap.
Oh my gosh. So what games inspired this game? I mean, I know we kind of talked a little bit about, the 90s side-scrolling beat 'em ups. So is there anything more recent that you kind of like, oh, that's cool from this game, or, these abilities are cool?
Yeah, I'll tell you guys this story, man. I mean, we were a year and a half in development on this game. We had about 6 or 7 people working on it, which, I'll get there. We were working on it. We'd been working on it for about a year and a half, and then the Streets of Rage 4 announcement trailer came out. And we looked at what we were making and scrapped every piece of art that we had made thus far. Because it had changed the standard of what a beat 'em up should be.
Yeah.
For the better, like absolutely for the better. So that is, 100% an inspiration for us, man. I mean, I think what they've done from an art standpoint is just brilliant and wonderful, and so vibrant. They've made an extremely vibrant game, which is important to us in particular. So, but that aside, so Denver, who I talked about, who's our lead engineer and honestly like our main gameplay designer outside of me, like he hates beat 'em ups completely. And so it's really fun when your co-lead hates the genre that you're making, because then it's about, okay, how do we make a beat 'em up that people who dislike beat 'em ups will really, really enjoy? And
RPG system.
Which we definitely have some elements of that for sure. We have a progression system in the game, absolutely, but like also make it a run and gun as well.
Yes.
And so for us, like our 3 pillars of the game are fast, frenetic, and fabulous. So like if you have 4 players playing at the same time, it is absolute and utter chaos, and it's the most fun. We wanted to make a game like our inspirations outside of beat 'em up genres in general is like Lisa Frank, Trapper Keepers, like 90s ridiculousness, right? Saturday morning cartoons. That is what our art inspiration was in a lot of ways.
So cool, man. I love the aesthetic of this game. I'm watching the trailer again right now just because it's so cool.
So how would you define the aesthetic of the game? I'm curious to hear.
Oh man, I mean, Saturday morning cartoons definitely. I would say more like maybe late 90s, early 2000s kind of Saturday morning cartoon. Definitely less Cartoon Network, which is in a great way. Not that those cartoons are bad, but they all have that kind of same kind of aesthetic, like kind of grungy, dirty. I like how clean it is. I like how
we're not cynical about this. I want to be clear. This is a very earnest take.
Yeah. No, that's what I think that's what I like most about it. Is like super clean. It's super cheerful, poppy, kind of like it makes you feel good when you watch it. There's so many games out there that like are trying to have this serious tone and dark and gritty, and it's like it's nice to see something that looks cheerful and fun and silly. um I like the designs of all the characters. I think the let's see, which character is it that has the mask on? Seda, is that how you say it?
Ida. Yeah.
Saida. Yeah,
Yep.
I love the mask. I love that the one girl has a shield. It just looks silly and fun, and like the enemy designs are great. The levels look straight out of like if you were to think of a modern beat 'em up, oddly enough, like this is what I would expect to see from. And I like, there's a point in the trailer where there's these flame walls going across, and they have like this rainbow color shoot up, like this game just makes me feel good to look at and watch, and I think that's why I'm really excited. It's the same feeling I got when Shredder's Revenge came out last year. I was like, oh my gosh, this is like everything I want in a modern Ninja Turtles beat 'em up, right? And it's like fun, poppy, character designs look great, enemies look great. You know, the variety of the level, man. I think you just by the trailer alone, I think you nailed it. And I love the flame throwing robots in this trailer. So it looks great.
If I
Dude,
had to give a definition to it, I would say you took a beat 'em up and you gave it caffeine. Like it looks a lot faster, a lot more hyper. The soundtrack to it is just absolutely kicking to the trailer. Like it just it's
just you wait on the
hyperactive. I
soundtrack.
like it.
Just you wait.
Mm-hmm.
The soundtrack has like a real Avril Lavigne sound to it a little bit. Like
that's just the trailer, right? You're talking about the trailer.
Just the trailer, yeah.
Just a trailer.
The actual game soundtrack's gonna be real cool, you guys.
Yeah, I can't wait to hear it. But like, there's this part where they go, "Hey, hey, hey," and I'm like, "That's straight up Avril Lavigne." That sounds just like, oh my gosh,
it's cheerleaders. Come on.
Yeah, I know.
It is cheerleaders. Yep.
So we do have a couple questions from our audience, and then there's two things I want to get to before we kind of let you go. But we have listener questions, and I want to talk about your team and your team a little bit, and then I definitely want to get into some of the the workings of Rah Rah Boom. So the one true James, we've kind of answered a couple of his questions, so he always writes in a ton of questions. So he asked, what's the one thing you're most excited for people to find out about Rah Rah Boom?
There's a really strong narrative in the game. So we're telling it's all VO, so it's all voice acted.
Nice.
You guys will get to hear all these characters. And the story, I'm one of the writers on it, so I may be slightly biased, but I really hope that this story resonates with people, because I think there's some important themes in there that'll connect.
Cool. His other question, which I guess would transition nicely into talking about your team, he said, Gylee is very team focused. The question is an invite to brag about your team.
Oh man, dude, I love my team so much. We just went to GDEX this past week. We were boothing at GDEX, which is in Columbus.
Mm-hmm.
It's a games conference in Columbus, and so it's close enough where like anyone in Cincinnati, we have a broader team that's sort of international, but we definitely have sort of a core team that's focused in Cincinnati. So we all got to hang out together for pretty much like a week straight. I think we're doing here's what I'll say about our team. We're doing a documentary, which may or may not come out, right? Like we're shooting the footage. Who knows if it? Mm-hmm. Yeah, but the thing is the guy that's doing our documentary like came to me and he's like, "Hey man, I've been shooting you for like 2.5 years, and like I don't have enough stuff to make anything because there's no drama. Like you guys get along too well. Like there's no tension to like build up and talk about." So I just our team, we all really love each other. We're all extremely collaborative. We all wear many, many, many hats, I think, between all of us. Everyone touches the game in many different ways. Like I think the game design in particular is very collaborative. Yeah, man. I don't know. Our team's so good, and we're doing it. You know, you look at like Streets of Rage, or then even Ninja Turtles, or Battletoads, or any of these other sort of beat 'em ups that we're trying to meet their standard that they set, because it's that fucking good. The stuff they've made is that good, and we have to hit that. And we're doing it with about the quarter of the size of the team. And so if this game comes out and hits that standard, we did it with 25% of the resources that they had. And the only reason that was possible is because of the team we have.
That's
Very nice.
I think it's cool when you hear stories like that of like a team who's like, a very small core team. I mean, you could in the indie space you hear about small teams all the time having success, right? But like it's nice to hear it come from someone like you who runs the studio and really knows your team instead of from, one of the people who write articles on the various websites, right? And it's like I like hearing that you have a small team, assuming a smaller budget than something like Ninja Turtles or Streets of Rage got, right? You know, not a financier or anything, but I that's what I'm assuming. And like the game looks this good already, right? It's man, I really hope this game takes off. I've I've been pushing it to everybody that I talk to because I knew this. First of all, I knew this was coming up, but I'm like, you guys got to check this out. And our host of our Nintendo podcast, Ed, is like, he's already obsessed with this game. He loves arcade classics, anything Nintendo related or arcade classic related. Like he's all about. And he was talking to me today about it. He's like, oh man, I wish I didn't have to work tonight. I would have come talk to him too. And I'm like, yeah, I know, man. This would have been the episode to have him on, but yeah, this is I really do hope this game takes off because it's super cool. I do have a question about that though, and maybe A, you don't know yet, B, you know and can't answer the question, or B or C, like maybe you haven't thought about it. Have you thought about like approaching Xbox or PlayStation to put it on something like PlayStation Plus or Game Pass or something to get that install base right away?
No comment.
Okay.
Got it.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll see. Stay tuned, everybody.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. Stay tuned, man. I mean, I think they're both killer platforms. I think, we're a game that's ripe for their audience on both sides of the table, and yeah, I mean, we'll see what happens there.
Yeah.
So
is that
as a gamer, I find like story being one of the most interesting aspects of the game. So what is kind of the story behind Rah Rah Boom? Like what is actually going on here?
Yeah, so I don't want to spoil too much. But so essentially the really short version is 20 years before the game starts. People on Earth developed and this I need you guys to understand, I wrote this story years and years ago. The people on Earth developed an AI to fight climate change. And the AI decided the best way to fight climate change was to destroy all humans. And so humanity had to flee Earth and has now been living in space stations orbiting Earth for the past 20 years. The AI has continued their pursuit of destroying humanity. And so the game starts off with AI's first attempt at destroying the space stations. And these girls have to go to Earth to save it. And so that's the start of the game.
Nice.
I love it. I love it. It's like just serious enough, but yet just silly enough. Oh, it's awesome.
Yeah, that's definitely our lane.
Yeah. We also we have a question from our longtime listener, Deshaun Malone. He asks, what What? Hold on, I lost it. Oh no. What inspired you to have different abilities other than picking up weapons and throwing them?
I mean, I think that goes back to sort of like our love-hate relationship with
Mhm.
beat 'em ups, right? Like, I'm an impatient person. I want fast and frenetic. I want games that move, man. I also like giving different player characters different weapons and this sort of gameplay loop of like close. I was a Marvel vs. Capcom guy, right? So like close melee combos are like absolutely my shit. Like I love sort of those, juggling enemies in the air and that kind of thing. But then like adding the option to be like, okay, well, I'm going to fight you close for a minute and then be able to back off and do ranged attacks. And for us, like trying to figure out how to do ranged attacks in a beat 'em up was like an impossible task. And that's why if you look closely at the environments, the environments are laned. There's sort of lanes on the ground, and that's
Mhm.
literally to give the player, one of the frustrations with beat 'em ups in general is like, I don't know if I'm actually hitting this enemy, and so giving the player an opportunity to like have a line of sight on an enemy from
Mhm.
across the screen was really important to us in that loop of sort of the melee versus ranged. And yeah, so all of those things really like, when we were looking at beat 'em ups in general and playing a ton of them, our question to ourselves as a team was like, what would this game look like if we liked it? And this is the answer to that.
Question in regards though of like bad guys on the screen, because the one thing I don't like about some beat 'em ups is when the bad guy walks off the screen.
Sure. Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
like, well, now it's like I'm punching a wall here. Like,
Yeah.
is that going to happen in this game, or are the bad guys kind of trapped in the screen?
Yeah, I mean, ideally we want the players to see the enemies as much as humanly possible, right? But the
Hmm.
upside is you now have the tools to destroy them even if you can't see them.
True, the long range,
Great,
Yep.
smart.
great. So no foot soldiers with bombs off screen, just tossing them everywhere. Great. That's what I like to hear. So we've talked about you, we've talked about the studio, we talked about your team, we've touched a little bit on the game, but I want to dive deeper in the game. So can you tell us about the characters? Because the characters, you're telling the story, the characters are clearly the central part of this game,
Yeah.
right? So I want to know how you came up with the characters, like their personalities, their how you decided which abilities each one got. Like,
Yeah. I mean, so the main player characters are Eris, V, Saida, and Ren. They're all wonderfully different and unique and flawed in different ways and have different strengths and have different struggles, and I think all that's really important to sort of the dynamic of the narrative as a whole. They're all inspired by real life people that I know, that were sort of the base of those characters, and then obviously the character becomes themselves, right? um and they have some stuff happen in the game that really makes them question how they relate to each other as a group and in a group, like very similar to like, when we were on high school, man, and one person changes in some way that none of us expected, and like how do we all as a group of friends sort of have a new dynamic around that, right? So there's a lot of that happens and a lot of sort of self-discovery for them as well throughout the game. And I'm dodging a bunch of spoilers, so I'm trying
Hmm.
to be good at that. But I think it's a coming of age story in the same way that we've kind of all gone through, or may have yet to go through. But where there's some sort of identity discovery and oh, this is how I relate to this person, or here's where my flaw is, and I can actually ask for help or rely on this person when I didn't think I could. A lot of that.
That's pretty deep, especially for a beat 'em up. I'm very curious to see how this is all going to play out, in the end with the story.
Same.
Yeah. Yeah, this is I think we all like you said have kind of had a version of that story play out one way or another, I mean I grew up in the 90s. Being into video games wasn't exactly the cool thing, right?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And it's going through some of that stuff by yourself is hard, and I'm excited to see how these characters kind of like have each other's backs or how their stories play out. And this game gets even more exciting by the second. I could talk to you for another couple hours about this. So
I'll have to come back on during launch, right?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
When you launch the game, I mean, even if you want to come on our main podcast to talk, that'd be awesome too. Like, I mean, open door invitation for sure.
Appreciate it, man.
Are you so are you going to Torg in November? In
I don't
Columbus?
know what that is.
It's
that's but that's like classic gaming in a lot of ways, right?
I don't know if it's classic. I mean, there's
if I'm in
classic
town,
gaming
I
there.
will be there. Yeah, if
Yeah,
I'm in town, I'll be there. But
okay. I mean, I was thinking about going there just because it's not that far.
Yeah.
And then I'm guessing you wouldn't be at the Cleveland Gaming Classic because that's all retro games. But
so we may end up boothing there, but I will not be there because I will be playing a rave.
Okay, cool. Let's see. What final thoughts, Pat? Do you have any final questions or final thoughts about Rah Rah Boom?
Well, I'm very curious if you have a particular favorite character so far.
Oh, absolutely. My final thought is wishlisted on Steam, please.
Mm-hmm.
That's super helpful to us. It costs no money. It actually really, really helps us be successful. So please go do that. Tell all your friends to do that. Do I have a favorite character? Absolutely not, because I love them all too much. Like they're, you know what I mean? Like you even in playtesting, right? Like I have to just randomize who I'm picking when I'm playtesting a player character, because I can't at this point. I just can't choose. Like they're all so different. They're all so unique. They're all so fun. And I know that's a very politician answer, but it really is true. It's like kids. Like you can't pick a favorite.
You know what? My grandmother picked a favorite. She told me it was me. You can, but I understand. You don't want to make the other ones feel bad.
Yeah, I mean it's kind of easy when you're the only child to know who the favorite is. So
yeah.
One final thought from me. I'm really excited. I love this idea. I love the concept. I love the art. I love the poppiness of the game. I think it looks awesome.
Thanks.
I have a question on platforms. Are you going to be on all platforms? Are you skipping platforms? Are you?
So I mean, we've announced Steam thus far.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And that's where we can leave it right now, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm okay. Cool. Just trying to sneak one in there. Well,
good shot though.
I know. I try every time. I try.
Hey, we gotta be careful. We saw the downfall of E3. We don't want that to happen to us, man.
Oh man,
the downfall of Boss Rush. Yeah, but the thing is, we don't
come after us.
we don't charge developers to be here, 7 figures and have a convention center in LA. So
no.
This was only $50,000, right, to be on here?
Oh, where's that money going? I gotta talk to Stephanie. She's hoarding all the money.
We'll talk about that later, okay, Chris? We didn't tell Corey about this.
Okay, got it.
Chris, this was a blast. I wish you the best of luck with this game. I will definitely be playing it when it comes out. You want to tell everybody where they can find you, find the game, find anything about this thing?
Yeah, I mean, so follow Gylee Games at Gylee Games on Twitter and Insta. I think TikTok as well. We don't do a lot yet there, but I think that's coming. I don't know. And then so follow at Gylee Games, Gylee. And then wish listed on Steam, please. That's actually really vital for us. It means a lot when you do it. I look at that number every single day. So if I see just 1 or 2 ticks, I will be thinking about you guys. So thank you so much. And then follow me at Chris Bergman on Twitter is my main place, probably. Sadly, Twitter's gone to shit, but still I'm on Blue Sky as well on at Chris Bergman.
Oh, you're on Blue Sky? I'm gonna follow you.
Yeah. And then on Insta at Bergs Makes Games is the Insta that I'm using currently. But it's mostly just DJ stuff, so bear with me there.
I think people enjoy a good DJ session, right?
Yeah, the gamers do. GDC did. That was great. We did the GDC after party. It was really, really fun.
Oh, really? That's awesome.
Yeah.
Nice. That's
cool. Yeah, everybody go wishlist it on Steam, other platforms TBD, guys. So, we'll have them back at launch and see if that changes. So, Chris, thank you so much for coming on. I want to thank everybody for watching and or listening to this episode of the Boss Rush Podcast Spotlight. You can find us on all major podcast apps. You can watch the video on YouTube. If you want it, on the go with the rest of our stuff, you can support us on Patreon for just $1. You can put it there. So, Pat, also thank you for your time tonight as well.
Appreciate it, man.
I know I'm probably taking away from your Final Fantasy time or something.
You know what? I had to take a small break and go to Diablo today.
Oh, okay.
I've neglected Diablo for a bit, and I needed to come back and let it know that I still care.
Man, Final Fantasy 16.
Yeah.
Oh, man. All right. That's it. Thank you guys so much for watching and or listening. Until next time, we love you. Goodbye.
Bye.
If you want to be a Patreon producer, head on over to Patreon, patreon.com/BossRushMedia, and find out which tier is right for you. Our Patreon producers at the $5 tier or higher for this month are Adriel Munger, Austin Campbell, Celeste Roberts, Christian S., Sana Dierig, Francisco Santillan, and Rebecca Jewell. Thank you for your continued support. The Boss Rush Podcast is a product of Boss Rush Media, LLC, and is recorded from our headquarters in Akron, Ohio. This show is produced, written, and directed by me, Corey Dierig. My co-hosts are Stephanie Klimov, Laron Dawkins, and Edward Varnell. You can find Stephanie at Klimov_author on Twitter and Instagram, as well as on the EXPcast. You can find LaRon at Exodus803 on Twitter, Instagram, Twitch, and YouTube, and also on Crossroads, the video game podcast. You can find Edward at ThatRetroCode on Twitter and Instagram, as well as hosting Nintendo Palblock. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at IamCoreyInHD, and find me hosting Tower Casuals, the Destiny podcast, and co-hosting Nintendo Palblock. Find the Boss Rush Podcast on all social media platforms at Boss Rush Podcast. You can also follow Boss Rush Media and Boss Rush Network on all major social media platforms. Join the Boss Rush Network Discord and Facebook groups to interact with other friends and fans. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.